My reflection didn't move, and it's still staring at me. It began 23 days ago, a small discrepancy while brushing my teeth before work. I reached for the faucet, but my reflection didn't. The motion in the mirror lagged by perhaps half a second, barely noticeable, easily dismissed as tired eyes playing tricks. I blinked hard, splashed cold water on my face, and the reflection synchronized again. Just a glitch in my perception. Nothing more. The next morning, the lag was longer. I raised my hand to adjust my collar, and my reflection remained perfectly still for nearly 2 seconds before mimicking me. I leaned closer to the mirror, studying my own face with growing unease. As I pulled back, my reflection's eyes seemed to follow mine a fraction of a moment too intentionally. By the 5th day, I couldn't ignore it anymore. While shaving, I made a sudden, jerky movement to test my suspicions. My reflection completed the expected motion, then smiled, a subtle curving of lips that I hadn't performed. I dropped the razor. It clattered in my sink, leaving a small chip in the porcelain. In the mirror, the razor remained in my reflection's steady hand. I tilted my head slightly, examining my real self with quiet curiosity. I stumbled backward, heart hammering against my ribs. When I cautiously edged forward again, my reflection had normalized, mimicking my movements with perfect synchronization. That night, I covered every reflective surface in my apartment with bedsheets. I told myself it was sleep deprivation, stress from the upcoming project deadline at work. I swallowed 2 sleeping pills and collapsed into unconsciousness. I woke to the sound of something scratching against glass. The mirror on my closet door, the one I'd forgotten to cover, gleamed in the darkness. I couldn't see my reflection from the bed, just the mirror's surface catching ambient light from the street outside. The scratching continued, gentle but persistent. I switched on the lamp with trembling fingers. The mirror appeared normal, reflecting my disheveled bed, the rumpled sheets, the empty side where Karen used to sleep before the divorce. Empty, that is, except for the handprint, a perfect outline pressed against the inside of the glass, as if someone were trying to push their way through. I approached with reluctant steps, drawn by horrified fascination. When I reached the mirror's edge, I realized why I couldn't see myself reflected. My reflection was sitting on the bed behind me. I whirled around. The bed was empty. When I turned back to the mirror, my reflection had moved to stand directly opposite me. We stared at each other, identical in every way except for the expression. While my face contorted in terror, my reflection remained perfectly calm, studying me with detached interest. It raised one hand and placed it flat against the glass. I ran. That night I slept in my car, parked in a 24-hour grocery store lot with the interior lights on. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to my sister Naomi's house 3 hours away. I didn't tell her why I'd come, just that Karen and I were having problems again, the same excuse I'd used during the separation. Naomi gave me the guest room, no questions asked. I should have warned her. On my 3rd night there, I heard Naomi scream. I rushed to the bathroom and found her backed against the shower stall, pointing at the mirror with a shaking hand. "There are 2 of you," she whispered. "One behind me and one in the mirror." But I was the only one in the doorway, and in the mirror, my reflection stood beside Naomi's, with one hand resting possessively on her shoulder. My reflection smiled at me as Naomi's began to weep. We left immediately. I drove us to a hotel while Naomi called her husband, who was away on business. She was still shaking, still insisting there had been 2 of me. "It looked exactly like you," she kept saying, "but wrong somehow. The eyes were empty." In the hotel room, I finally told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to fear, to a kind of grim determination that reminded me of our father. "We need to get rid of them," she said finally. "All the mirrors." "It won't help," I replied, remembering the handprint. "I think it's getting stronger, finding ways through." That night, Naomi tucked towels under the bathroom door and hung a blanket over the TV screen. I sat in a chair facing the window, watching our reflections in the darkened glass. 2 small, vulnerable humans surrounded by an encroaching night. I must have dozed off. When I startled awake, my reflection remained asleep in the chair. Then its eyes opened. It lifted a finger to its lips. Behind it, in the reflection of the room, another figure rose from the bed where Naomi slept. Not Naomi's reflection, but mine again, a third version of myself, moving with deliberate stealth toward her sleeping form. I shouted a warning, lunging for the lamp. The room flooded with light, banishing the reflections in the window. Naomi sat up, confused and afraid. The bathroom door was open, the towels scattered across the floor. The blanket had been removed from the television. We checked out at 3 a.m., driving aimlessly until dawn. Naomi suggested what I'd already been considering, that I needed professional help. She knew a psychiatrist, a former classmate, who specialized in disorders involving perception and reality. She made a call, pulled some strings. Dr. Whitman agreed to see me that afternoon. The doctor's office had no mirrors, which should have been comforting. Instead, I found myself staring at his glasses, watching for my reflection in the lenses. Sometimes I caught glimpses of movement that didn't align with my own. What you're describing sounds like a severe form of heautoscopy, Dr. Whitman explained. It's a type of hallucination where one sees one's own body at a distance, often associated with neurological conditions, extreme stress, or traumatic experiences. It's not just seeing myself, I insisted. It's replacing myself. My reflection is becoming autonomous. Dr. Whitman nodded sympathetically and wrote something in his notepad. When did this begin? Any significant events occur around that time? I started to say no, then stopped. 23 days ago, the day after I'd found the old mirror. I'd almost forgotten. An estate sale in the historic district. I'd bought the mirror on impulse, a heavy Victorian piece with an ornate silver frame, tarnished with age. I'd hung it in my hallway, pleased with how it brightened the space. That was the first mirror where I'd noticed the lag. I told Dr. Whitman about the mirror. He seemed more interested in my divorce, my job stress, my sleeping habits. He prescribed anti-anxiety medication and recommended a sleep study. As I left, he offered to refer me to a colleague who specialized in more severe dissociative disorders if the symptoms persisted. I didn't take the medication. Instead, I drove back to my apartment with Naomi, determined to remove the Victorian mirror. The building seemed different somehow, the hallway longer, the turns more numerous. My key stuck in the lock, requiring several attempts before the door swung open. The apartment was immaculate, not as I'd left it, with sheets thrown haphazardly over mirrors and furniture askew from my hasty departure. Everything was in perfect order. The sheets were gone. Every mirror was exposed. And there were more of them. Mirrors I didn't recognize hung on walls that seemed subtly wrong, slightly higher, slightly broader than I remembered. "This isn't right," I whispered. "Someone's been in here." Naomi clutched my arm. "Let's just get the old mirror and go." The Victorian mirror still hung in the hallway, reflecting the length of the corridor. As we approached, I noticed something odd about our reflections. Mine walked half a step ahead of me, while Naomi's lagged behind. In the mirror, my reflection turned its head to look back at Naomi's, a subtle communication passing between them. "Don't look at it," I hissed, pulling her forward. Something's wrong with her reflection, too. We reached the mirror. I grabbed it with both hands, ready to lift it from the wall hook. My reflection grabbed back. Our hands met at the surface of the glass, except there was no surface anymore. My fingers plunged into cold, viscous resistance, like pushing through gelatin. From the other side, identical fingers wrapped around my wrists and pulled. I screamed, trying to wrench away. Behind me, Naomi cried out. I looked over my shoulder to see her reflection emerging from the hallway mirror, like a diver surfacing through water, hands gripping the frame, pulling its body into our reality. The glass rippled and distorted. My reflection's grip tightened, inexorably drawing me closer to the mirror's fluid surface. "They're coming through," I gasped. With desperate strength, I tore one hand free and drove my elbow into the mirror. The glass cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the surface, but didn't break. In the fractured reflection, I now saw not one but dozens of versions of myself, each contained within a separate shard, each watching with the same hungry patience. All slightly different, some with longer hair, some thinner, one with a scar across its cheek, another missing an eye, and all reaching toward the cracks, fingers pressing against weakened points in the glass. Naomi grabbed a heavy bookend from the nearby shelf and swung it at her own reflection, which was now halfway into our world, torso emerging from the rippling surface. The mirror shattered as the reflection screamed, not with Naomi's voice, but with a higher, more distorted version that echoed as if from a great distance. The emerging figure collapsed, its body dissipating into a fine mist that smelled of copper and ozone. My reflection's grip loosened as cracks spread through its mirror as well. I broke free, falling backward into Naomi. "We have to destroy them all," she said, already moving toward the bathroom with the bookend still clutched in her hand. "Every mirror, every reflective surface." We worked methodically, shattering mirror after mirror. With each broken glass, we felt the wrongness in the apartment recede slightly. The walls seemed to contract, returning to their proper dimensions. The unfamiliar mirrors disappeared once broken, leaving no trace they had ever existed. Finally, only the Victorian mirror remained, cracked but intact enough that I could still see fragmented versions of myself watching from within each shard. "This one's different," I said. "I think it's the origin point." Naomi handed me the bookend. "Finish it." I raised the makeshift weapon but hesitated. In the largest remaining shard, my reflection pressed its palm against the glass. Its lips moved, forming words I could almost understand. "What are you?" I asked. The lips moved again, this time I could read them clearly. "We are what comes after you." I brought the bookend down with all my strength. The mirror exploded in a shower of silver fragments. A cold wind rushed past us, carrying whispers in 1,000 versions of my own voice. The fragments melted like ice on hot pavement, leaving only the tarnished frame hanging empty on the wall. It's been 2 weeks since that day. Naomi stayed with me for several nights before returning to her life, extracting a promise that I'd call Dr. Whitman again. I haven't. Some things can't be explained by neurological conditions or stress. I've removed all mirrors from my apartment. I cover the windows at night. I've learned to shave by touch. When I use public restrooms, I keep my eyes fixed on the sink, never looking up. But sometimes in the corner of my eye, I catch my reflection in unexpected places. The chrome of a toaster, the screen of my powered-down phone, the polished surface of a stranger's sunglasses. It's waiting, watching, and it's not alone anymore. Last night, I woke to find my bedroom door open, though I distinctly remembered closing it. On the wall opposite my bed, where no mirror hangs, I saw a familiar silhouette cast by the streetlight filtering through my window. My own shadow standing independently of my body, staring down at me as I lay paralyzed with fear. It hasn't left. Even now as I write this, it stands in the corner of the room, perfectly still except for the eyes, my eyes, that follow every movement of my pen. It's patient, they all are. The glass was merely one boundary. They've found others to cross. And sometimes, in unguarded moments when I accidentally glimpse my reflection, I notice subtle differences. A small scar on my knuckle that wasn't there before. A slightly different part in my hair. I'm starting to wonder if I'm still on the right side of the glass at all.